It seems as if Checkerspot's use of more renewable sources for polymer feedstocks results in improved performances due to some interesting biomaterial properties. So in this case, what benefits does using microalgae provide for the end user outside of being a more sustainable alternative for polymers?
Yeah, it can have a unique benefit compared to other raw materials, but to really get all the way to where now you're exceeding performance of incumbent materials, there's a lot of other formulation and applications work you're going to have to do with anything. And so that part of our technology is very, very key. And that's the advantage of having this brand and this fabrication piece as a way to iterate. Because if I just have that monomer and I've done a little bit of formulation in my lab and I'm trying to tell the rest of the world, no, look, this is great. My knowledge base is pretty limited. First of all, I probably haven't used it in an end use application. I just have this block of stuff and it's like really hard and it's really strong. I don't know how to manufacture with it. I don't know how to use it. So those second and third pieces, I would argue, are very integral to really wringing the performance out of these sustainable materials. So the raw material can help you toward that end significantly, but that's not the end of the story. You really need the other two pieces.
Let's dive into that more a little bit. So one of the major challenges of novel materials technologies is really that scaling from a lab, the small scale, to a massive commercial scale. However, Checkerspot is unique as a company due to the vertical integration that you mentioned, in the sense that, Checkerspot produces its own feedstock polymer resins, manufactures its own products, and it works with professional skiers to gain that continuous feedback, the 72-hour cycle like you were talking about on the product performance. So how does all of this vertical integration improve the opportunity to bring the technology of biopolymers to the commercialized scale?
Well, it's basically shortening the development time of anything that you would ever be working on. So, we had a thesis when we started the company, okay, we've got a platform organism that works really well. It's really robust. We know this works at manufacturing scale. We know we can scale it. Okay, we're going to have to build a brand. We've got to have a way to animate this technology. We've got to get it into consumers' hands and get them excited. And then by extension, other people will see that and they too will also become excited. We had this concept that we'd be able to prototype rapidly and have sort of a test build cycle that was very, very short. We imagined we could do all these things. Now we're actually doing it. We're selling product. There's a lot of excitement around it. But if as far as that got, we're simply this brand, that's not going to get us to large enough scale so that we can impact these other industries. So our approach is really to build on what we've done with the brand, to move out into what we call adjacencies. So think about other people in winter sports. Think about other people in ski. Can we co-develop with them, as we have with Wonder Alpine, these materials in those applications? So Wonder Alpine, we started last year. That was our product launch. We made a certain number of skis. We'll more than double that number this year. We'll probably in the neighborhood of about triple that number next year. That's still a relatively small market. But when you talk to some of the large incumbents in the ski industry, some of those folks are going to make 20, 30 times, as more than that actually, 50 times as many skis in a year as we might make next year. They're very large. So that's an opportunity for us to widen this circle and increase scale. But in the grand scheme of things, that's still tiny. That's still vanishingly small. So what we have to build through this expertise, through these three pillars, is to not only get to those adjacencies, and we don't have to get to these further out applications immediately, but think about applications like automotive. Think about applications like building materials. Those types of applications will drive scale. And
sure,
the technology that we're applying is exactly the same. So when you think about the core competencies that we're developing as a company to meet the needs in the outdoor space within a ski, they're no different than the core competencies that you need to develop to, say, develop that lightweight bumper on a Tesla or a Rivian or some other electric automobile. It's the same applications work. As we build that notoriety, as we prove ourselves in this outdoor space, at the same time, we're working to sort of capture the imagination of developers at these other companies, because only with that wider adoption will we achieve that scale that will get us to price. That's going to be one of the ultimate challenges for industrial biotechnology. If you don't get to that scale, you'll just be very niche. And by extension, your impact will be less. It's just that simple.
So just to clarify then, your company is clearly growing very rapidly. And so that kind of brings that balance between new processing challenges, but also the economies of scale that you're mentioning. Do you foresee that development time that you're talking about increasing or decreasing as your company and your brand continues to grow?
Well, right now it's pretty rapid. I think one of the mistakes that companies could make, and my experience is just in industrial biotechnology, so I'll go with that as an experience, is that if you want to do more stuff, you throw more bodies at it. That'll get us there faster. 9 times out of 10, that's not the way to go. You need to be very methodical and thoughtful. You kind of want to operate at this relatively high frequency, sense of urgency, but oftentimes, you don't know what you need. You need to wait. You need to be patient. You need to see how are things developing. I don't know that I need 5 more people today. A lot of people might look at what we're doing and say, no, you need 5 more people. And I'm like, no, we don't. We don't know what direction we're going in right now. We're getting plenty of feedback. So part of it is just, you have to be patient enough to let these things kind of develop. We had a very, what I believe is a sound thesis of how to build this technology. Focus the technology through the brand. The feedback will inform you. Don't overextend yourself. Don't try and overreach into 50 applications at once. I guarantee you will fail. Build out the credibility through the brand. And so we're really taking this measured approach to building this capability. So we build a deeper understanding, and we'll be far more prepared to partner with people that want to go into sort of that next ring of applications outside of what we're working on today.
That's a great way to think about it. And so, talking about this paradigm of biomanufacturing. So, how does this paradigm of biomanufacturing help overcome these issues of scalability in this new technology space? I mean, because you made the point quite clearly that you need the economies of scale thing to work out to get the price where it needs to be, to really broaden your impact on the space. And what exactly does biomanufacturing mean to Checkerspot?
Well, I mean, biomanufacturing is that process whereby, we're typically starting with a fermentation-based technology, some micro, that is, making a certain type of molecule. And it's critical that if these molecules are going to have a real impact, you're going to have to do this at very, very large scale. I mean, in essence, what we're doing is we're converting the photosynthate that either a corn plant or a sugarcane plant or a sugar beet takes sunlight and converts it into sugar. We're taking that sugar and we're bioconverting it. We're biotransforming it into something else, into some other molecule. And we do that through an organism. The organism is just a shuttle. It's just a vehicle. We're moving energy through it in the form of sugar, and we turn it into something else. So what biomanufacturing has to do, what it has to be able to do, is do this at scales that are relevant if these renewable chemistries are going to take hold and they're actually going to be utilizable. And the scale you're competing with is the petroleum industry. So, United States, 20 million barrels of oil a year is what we use for transportation fuel and, chemicals, oleochemicals, everything else that we turn those into. I mean, that's a huge amount of material, a huge volume of material. So thinking about how do you scale these processes, and how do you think like an oil refinery? Oil refineries are remarkably efficient, wicked smart people have designed oil refineries. I mean, they are really good at wringing every penny out of what goes into that plant. And I think, when we think about biomanufacturing, we need to think the same way. Every input that goes into that fermenter needs to result in a product somewhere else. For us, it's a triglyceride oil, but we also need to think about, the cellular material that's left, which is about, 15% of the weight of the cell is, we don't currently utilize in our polymers. So what do you do with that material? And then more importantly, with that oil, how many different things can you turn that into? Because that's all a barrel of oil is. When people first started using crude oil, what did they do with it? They burned it. Not very interesting and not very exciting, but they were trying to replace whale oil. So that was kind of an end use. But think about the transformation of a barrel of crude oil over, say, the 150 years that it's been processing. I mean, almost everything you're looking at, holding in your hand, came from that black stuff, which is pretty remarkable. So from the biomanufacturing perspective, we really need to think the same way. We need to think about whatever we're making, we've got to wring as many different monomers, if you will, out of that material as we possibly can, because that will allow us also to achieve scale and price cost.